wish to introduce CA Nishit Seth, who has over 2 decades of experience in delivering strategic, analytical, and advisory solutions to diverse industries, including government, utilities, telecom, banking. He is currently director at SSPL Middle East and has been earlier associated with Bettelco as a forensic audit manager. He has been associated with Substratal Solutions Private Limited and worked as a managing director at SK Seth and Company Chartered Accountants. So with that, I would like to invite CA Nishit Seth to deliver the session. Sir, the floor is yours.
I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir, you are.
Yeah, thank you, Shashank, and thank you, Honorable Chairperson of the chapter, for giving me this opportunity and to the ExCom committee. I don't know how well it could be, but I don't have too many slides to share, to be honest. And I'm trying to make it more on my personal case studies of my experience that I have seen across the world. I remember way back 1994, 95 when I started looking into data analytics. That time we used to have a desktop machines with black and white was a new incoming, and we used to have a disk operating systems, and we had a very few Pentium 1 kind of a things coming in. And people used to wonder, what are we trying to do? Somehow, after being a chartered accountant, I could not gel well with the multicolored pens we carried in a pocket with red, green, blue colors and putting the ticks with a calculator. So I ventured into this kind of what I would say, like not much demanded and looked upon kind of a sector. It reminds me of a very interesting thing. It was wonderful listening to the previous speaker and a very relevant and interesting points when we talked about analytics there, where we talked about governance, businesses. You know, where we have landed up in a major into a issue which is a good for our profession. It's a good challenge that if we try to venture into it, would help us. You know, we confused ourselves when we started in 1984 in India, something called computerization. I think if most of the senior members or you would have heard about this is a computerized bank branch, and you could go there and happily get your passbook printed by a printer. And it took almost more than 10 to 12 years, the banks or the organization to realize there is something called automation. And then in late 1990s or early 2000s, the industry and the banks and insurance, telcos, they started talking about, let's move from computerization to automation. It's something like, you know, what is the computerization that happened? Why I'm going into this background? Because then I would like to link out with some of my case studies. Because in computerization, we just did nothing but, you know, we just automated our manual work. We removed our pen and paper and we made it computer enabled. Instead of using the pens and writing the manual edges, we were punching into the keypads and we were printing it out. Nothing more than that. And then people realize the vulnerabilities, and then they start, let us look for some intelligence into it. And to be honest, like if I look into the trend across the world, it is less than 5 years where people have really looked into something called intelligent automation. And particularly in last 1.5 years, thanks to COVID side effects. You know, it was something like, you know, a man driving at a countryside and he suddenly breaks his car because there is a villager who's crossing the highway with a herd of sheep. And, you know, with a herd of sheep, he has certain dogs also, which keeps the sheep together in the group and they keep on moving. He happily goes and a young enthusiastic man to that guy and says, if I tell you how many sheep are there in your herd, will you give me one? He says, okay. So he opens a laptop, connects the GPS, does all those gadgetry things over there. And then he says, you know, you have 125. So as per the commitment, he gives him one. So while he was going back to in his car, the guy says, if I tell you who you are, will you give it back? He says, sure. He says, you are an IT professional. So he says, how do you know that? He says, you are telling me something which I already know. Now, can I have my dog back? So he gets his dog back. That's where exactly the problem happens. The problem when we talk about security, when we talk about analytics, why I took this topic was for IT security and business assurance. We have been quite selective in doing the things. We do not try to integrate these two important elements. If you remember 2003, 2004, when we had a great American frauds of Enrons and all those kind of things, and the American government came with the compliance rules, and nowadays also there are a lot of compliances. They came with the SOX. People started going for SOX compliance because it was mandatory. All the NASDAQ listed companies should be SOX compliant, certified by the consultant. Everything went on there. I was also called up by one of the companies whose entire audit and data processing were based out in India. And they said, what is something different you can do? I said, okay, let me know what you are doing. So they said, we run this ERP systems in SAP, and we have been certified by one of the big fours, and pardon me for keeping those mask names. And we are being ready, but what's unique you can do? That is where, to be honest, was my career's first encounter, where I found that if I try to link the security with analytics, it makes greater sense in doing my things. So they said, we have the SAP system, we have the segregation of rules, we have everything laid out well. So if you have a designated or you have been given a authority up to $10,000, you type $10,000 50 cents, it will stop you. Fantastic. One thing we should always remember with all the security and things, I don't discredit anybody, but our offenders are always 2 steps ahead of us. The only thing then I did was I said, okay, you have certain security mechanisms. You have certain rules over here. When people come to office, they log in into the system, the password controls, everything is there. Can I get the data from all these sources? The biggest challenge that as an auditor, as a consultant we have is the 2 most important things: getting the correct and the right data. That becomes the biggest challenge, because as into a business, we do not get behind the scenes. So, you must have seen an ad which says Intel Inside. Now you can imagine this presentation was given by a very senior officer of Intel in one of the public forum. He said the ad is Intel Inside. Now who's outside, you can very well imagine. And that's what reality goes. So when I picked up that data, I said, okay, give me your entire HR dump. I would like to see who are the people who have logged in, how many people have entered your premises, who all are working from home. Even today in COVID, you're working from home, you can be well monitored using a very simple analytical thing. How much work are you doing? A lot of people I meet, they say it's very good to work at home. I just switch on, log in, and I relax. I watch the movies on Netflix and everything. But at times I do see some chats are coming, some team calls coming, I'm doing. But if you just do a couple of simple things, you can really monitor what is exactly happening. And when I get all those kind of data feeds, I just did a simple what you would do in an Excel, something called lookups, pivots, whatever commands you have. Normally, people are more driven with the commands and the technologies. I know this command, that function. More important is, do you know what you are trying to do and why you are trying to do? And once I have that kind of an objective, why am I trying to do this? Then I was able to write my algorithms. And it showed me out there are so many employees who are actually not in the system, but their logins are logged into the system. Why I'm bringing this very critical case, which is almost now 18 years old, there are so many data sets at the back of the system which do not talk to each other. You may not be physically present in the office, but if you have an SAP, Oracle, whatever ERP you have, if you have the login ID of the password of the employee, he may not be in the organization. You can still log in. How are you able to log in? Because your attendance, your logins are not integrated with your business application. So people use and they misuse those kind of loopholes, and they are still prevalent also. In 2021, I see a lot of places when I do these kind of consulting, yes, they are not talking to each other. And that's what we make to talk using analytics. And then we came out with a list of employees who were not in the system, and then related that with the transactions and found out how many transactions were done. And then it came out and tell $183 million exposure done by people who were not in the system. And none of the transaction violated any segregation, but they were factually not by those people. I give you another simple example. We talk about big things. I'm not a big man, so I just talk small, basic things. A simple thing that you could ever try using Excel, Access, anything that you want. ever try to see, if you want to look into business assurance, how many logins per day happens from a same system? One of a very nice group internal audit head in India, he called me up and said he was basically trying to find something different, and we land up of finding out something very unique. He was trying to find out, while I issue a purchase order, what is the time it is taking in my system? When is a requisition raised? When is a request coming in? How much time does at each level of approval it goes through? And finally, after how many days or hours my PO is issued? We were trying to find out that, and we found out that in between there were certain steps where the time gap was less than 10 minutes. And that really gave a trigger. Why is that such a fast activity happening at this particular position only? And then when we checked into the system IP number, which is very easy now available in all the networks, we found it was the same IP number. That means somebody logged in, did his activity, logged off, and then again logged in with another password, and he approved it. So we found that at a one particular place, the time lag between the transactions. A very simple analytics to see what's the time difference between two steps. It gave a very good insight of how assured you could be for this particular thing. What was the time at which it happens? Off hours, midnight, anything that could happen. Most of the analytics that we talk about are basically based on, when we talk about security, when we talk about business assurance, is always based on certain past experiences. And we fail to understand that you are basically driving yourself on the past. You are not knowing the unknown. Offenders are not going to be there. It is something like, I have been working with certain state police in the country, and one of the cities which unfortunately had few blasts. I was just roaming around in a market and I found a barricading. I saw a small van of Royd police and 5-6 people there. And I asked them, what is this barricading about? He says, 12 years back, there was a blast at this place. So I asked them, since then, are you been standing here? He says, yes. Meka, do you think after all this barricading and your setup here, another terrorist will come and put up bomb over here? Won't he go to a better place? This is exactly what we are doing also in the business. We are just keeping thinking, what has happened in the past? Somebody manipulated purchase order pricing, somebody manipulated payment terms. We are still into all those. We are not moving ahead. Another thing that you would like to know as a business assurance, we provide internet connection to our employees. Do we ever think of analyzing the data? How many hours during my business hours, which employee is spending how many minutes or hours on what websites? You can find it out. When we talk about big data, what does the big data mean? The big data means the data coming from multiple sources. Obviously, it means like a volume of the data for sure, but it means more of coming from multiple different complex sources, and I'm able to integrate them and perform my single analytics, which will give me an answer like a story. How many hours my guys are doing what activity? They are using a Wi-Fi from my office. All their WhatsApps are there available to me. All their internet access is available to me. Their Skypes are there, their Teams are there, their Zooms are there. How many hours what they are really doing? Are they really being very productive or not? How is the system working? These are the certain interesting things that really gets down to you to make out a more valuable analytics or a business assurance to really make sure where are your resources used. We are still boiled down into double bill bookings, duplicate payments, excess payments, somewhere some penal charges not recovered. If we try to see like what are the productive real hours of your employees or your team members, and if you are able to better it out there with these big data analytics, you will better your performance, you will better your output. I give you an example. In the Middle East, I was working with a bank. I worked there for almost 4-5 years. Their audit head and came and said, I have my people in this particular department. I have almost a team of 36 people here. Can you do something on their IT ticketing and give me some valuable insight? So basically, he was not very convinced with the quality of work that was going in. And based on the IT ticketing, we were able to come out with a conclusion which are the areas in which you need to train your employees. Where are they losing the time? Are they finding it difficult to work with Excel? Are they crashing the system? Right? What was the command that they use and they crash the system? So you need to put your guys on these sector of training, and if you put them on these subjects, yes, you might improve your performance. You might improve your output from them. Normally, what is the methodology? Methodology is HR is supposed to look after the training. They will send you the mails. They will send you, I have LinkedIn online trainings. I have Tumpkins. I have all these things. Please select your interest area and you please do it. Story ends. But do you really need a guy who have you given the power? What should be his exact training path? That is where again the big data comes into picture. And I can always find it out by a simple IT ticketing analytics that what are the areas which your employee need to improve, where he is repeatedly making mistakes, his system going down for how many hours. So how many productive hours are lost over there? If he had would been trained better on this, you would have saved so many hours and he would have done a better job for you. That goes into it. Then we normally, the problem comes out is when we are doing certain kind of analytics, we are normally driven by appeasing. Okay, I need to make some beautiful report, a beautiful dashboard. Let me tell you something, not to discourage out anything. Analytics, whether it is big data analytics or you do the audit analytics, it is always a two-layer platform. At the back of that layer is something called ETL. And at the front of it is what today people talk about visualization. You have Power BI, Tableau, lot of technologies are there. I'm not marketing any technology. Whatever suits you good, it's always good for you. I always say technology is like a buying a car. People buy Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, BMW, whatever you like, whatever is in your budget, you buy it. Similarly is with the technology. Every technology does a good job for you. Now, whatever makes you more comfortable, you do it. The most important element is you have a layer called ETL, extract, transport, and load, which is a very, very critical layer. This is the layer. These are the places from where you can integrate your data with the source data. Your source data could be a business data. Your source data could be even an IT security data. It could be any form, but it has to be digitally formed. And using these technologies, you are able to integrate them. And these technologies, whatever platform you pick up, are reasonably very fast today. The data even could be in the cloud. You can surely pull out those data. The most important part is, are you getting a right access? Are you getting to a right correct data? And that too, you should be getting on continuous basis. So as an analyst, as a professional, as an auditor, as a consultant, I look to this element first. And once I am able to connect to it, and I know I'm going to get a continuous feed, I would have what I want. I would be building out my logic. Now, before I get to the logic, I always hunt out answer for the two most important questions while I'm connecting to the data. I'm not getting into my algorithms or making the process or logic even before that. And the two most important questions that I look for is what I'm trying to do. I'm going to look into something called duplicate payments to the vendor, or I would look into double bill booking. Fantastic. You can ask anybody, he will come and say, you talk to CFOs, you talk to audit heads. They will give you a very good list of what they want. The most difficult question comes, sir, why you want it? That's a place where most of the people I find it going blank. Why I want? I want it. You want to know duplicate payment. Why would I need an answer that way? Because I need an answer. Based on the why, I will be connecting to the data. Duplicate payment, my answer why matters might be possible. My company issues checks and my company pays online. So till date, I'm running two modes of payment. So it is possible a vendor would have given me a single invoice, but that invoice would have gone for double payment by check also and by online also. Fantastic. That means to verify this, my target is your payments. The second could be, no, I have a single platform of payment. I always pay online only, but it is possible the same invoice would have entered in my A company. And since I have the common database with my subsidiary or another company, it would have entered there also, or may not be subsidiary, but a different location of my same company. So that means in your system, you have certain places where your multiple invoices could be entered. And since the multiple invoices are entered, obviously they have been paid multiple times. I have faced that music. One of my happy clients, he was in Oracle system. They migrated to SAP. I got my first payment through Oracle. And once they migrated, I got my second payment through SAP. Something went wrong. I happily got the payment. And after 2 years, some of their statutory auditor woke up and said, sir, you got double payment. I said, don't worry. I've written already half a dozen mails to your finance. They never responded to it. They said, as per the records, it was singly paid. So there could be multiple reasons. What is an exact reason? That is what we need to know. That is why these two important questions comes. I give you another live case. Well, I came to this beautiful country, and thanks to one of your chapter ex-chairman, Mr. Kapil Batra, who got me here for some good job. While I was working for him, I made a report in my initial days. And I said, sir, as per my experience, this report is like this. So you have so many vendors with these are the exception parameters. He just added a twist to it. He says, can you give me what was the date, what was the amount, what was the material for the first PO issue to these vendors, and what was the last date and the last PO and the last amount to these vendors? So give me these 6 information to each of your exceptions. And what nicely came out of it was, possibly one vendor had one company, and after that particular time, he formed another company or changed the company name, or might be shifted from SPC to WLL, and a new vendor got created. But after that new vendor, the earlier company never got any PO. There are these small things which really twist your output report while you're doing analytics. And that is why I say what and why becomes very important. Apply what and why only in the business office, not at your home. Don't influence in your personal life to ask what you want and why you want. The moment you ask this question to your better half, you would be in a difficult condition. So what we try to do is, this is the basic thing that we do. Based on that, what I say, then you go and connect out your data. Once you have the data, another very interesting thing happens. Now, when you try to do analytics, there is a concept called false positive. I hope many of you who would have been using Excel, Access, or any tool at your places, many a times you would have encountered when you go to the IT people and say, I see something on security or something on billing or a business assurance. And they come out and say, oh, it's a very high exception. Yes. So most of them are false positive. A new rule starts coming up. No, you please apply this condition. You remove this condition. You don't make it less than, you make it greater than. Any kind of modification that comes to you, and the moment you try applying it, what happens is your exception starts going down. Why this is happening? Is it really a honest, true, false positive? Now, this is my question which I've started asking in last 4 or 5 years, wherever I've been working, that you challenge and say, this is false positive. Are you sure these are false positive? How, and what are the basis of that surety? Why I bring up this topic, it is very important. It's very nice that you people are continuously doing a lot of interesting training programs. I've been seeing the chapter in last 1.5 years, very nicely, been very well led also. While you are learning analytics, while you are learning Excel or any tools or any platforms, please always remember there is a methodology of doing the things. The methodology is, you will be surprised to know when you do data analytics in the entire process is just 20%. 80% of your data analytics or any advanced analytics is outside the technology. It's never a part of the technology. What are those important 5 steps? And trust me from my experience, if you follow them, I can assure you, if not 100%, at least 80 to 90% success in the single shot. The first step is, as I just explained in bit of the depth, what and why, we call it planning. I need to plan what I'm going to do and why I'm going to do. Based on that, I should be very authentic about the data that I'm going to connect. Is it right? Is it correct? Is it clean? Or does it need some kind of massaging? Don't take the other side of the massages. Get to the technical side of massages. So is that massage, is the data requiring? Once that is ready, once your data is massaged, it is healthy, it is ready for it, for your audit, for your analytics. Imagine you are still not started with analytics. You have done 20, out of the 5, you have done 2 steps. The third step comes that I try to find the integrity of the data, where I will look into certain parameters. My business rules should be very clear to me. If you are trying to look into changes in purchase order, what kind of changes am I looking? What is the process in which the purchase order can be changed? Or if I'm looking into billing, what is my methodology of the billing? Please have that business rules documented, written on the paper, and signed off from the stakeholders. The people who are possessing, could be your auditee, could be your departments or whoever it is. We miss out this element of getting it signed off. And this is the place where it is being played when you come with the analytic output. Sir, this is the where you made a mistake in your process step. You should have added this condition also. I would like to emphasize and I would like to put a pressure over here that instead of going to my auditee or to my owners of the process or things, I would like to find out from somewhere reliable source, what is an organization policy for this particular process? If the POs are to be amended, POs are to be changed, under what all conditions, what all are the things which can be changed in the PO? Can you change a price? Can you change the vendor? Can you change your quantities? Can you change the payment terms? I would like to know exactly what is the organization policy and then apply that organization policy into my analytics. That is my level 4. And before I start doing that, I write my simple English steps on a paper. I write like a very layman person. I am going to bring in vendor master table. I would bring in PO master table. Then I would bring in a table with requisition date. I would relate or I would create a lookup or pivot between these 3-4 tables. And my condition is that your requisition date should not be after your PO initiation date, whatever conditions you want to write. These columns should not be ever changed in a simple English. I don't expect even myself or anybody to keep getting on the technical code because we are basically finance guys. We are not IT guys. Once I've done those kind of steps written on the paper, then I can open Excel, I can open Access, I can open any tool. And what I do is I straight away apply. Let me give you a logic why. I hope most of you people have been using Excel a lot. Although we are in a virtual environment, I do presume your answer to be yes there. In an Excel, you can just see one sheet at a time. You could have multiple sheets in your Excel, but when you open it in your laptop or your desktop screen, you just see one sheet at a time. You can keep on moving from one to the second to the third. But while you are writing your data on the paper, while you are writing the table names, you're writing the field names, you're writing the conditions, I can see all my tables together on a single sheet on a paper. I can easily with a pen and a paper make it out. Okay, this is vendor master. I have a vendor code here. This is my material master. This is a material code. Which column which have the common matching column to whom? What is the architecture I'm going to design? Which lookup am I going to have? B, H, Z, X, Y, whatever it is. I could do that thing much better on a paper. Trust me, You start writing your analytical steps on the paper, it will make your job much easier. You will be able to see it on a paper that I'm writing 7 steps to do the thing, but I can surely do it in 4 steps. I can do it in a 5 steps. Your mind will be working to optimize it. And then the concept of doing more with the less comes into the picture. Once you have written those steps and you apply, and thereafter you get an exception, you will always have a very relevant argument when you go back and share your exceptions or the report. You will have everything on the paper and things, and you can argue and say, this is the policy, these are the conditions, I have done it. You need not click on the Excel or macros or anything to do. Your paper will start speaking to you more, and your output would be much better. So whenever you're getting into it, please, my dear professional colleagues, friends, try to follow this. It might give you a better result. But if you have any trouble or any problem while doing it out, yes, I can help you out to it. I'm so sorry, in all these things, I forgot to switch on my PPT. So there are one of the things that I would surely like to share for my PPT with you is a very important slide that I always feel is related to how do you really make a matured model? This one. I hope you are able to see my screen. Yeah, Shashank, my screen is visible. Okay, you are muted.
Yes,
But
yes.
I could do a lip reading of Shashank that he said yes.
Sir. Yes, sorry, sir. Yes, the screen is visible.
No worries. Thanks to God for the video, at least some lip reading helps. Now, when we are making out any kind of a maturity model, this is the very important steps that we normally follow. Because why I'm trying to bring it in here, I have, very good friends around in the industry, and they come out and say, we want to do it, but how should we proceed? What should be our methodology of doing it? As because of the COVID, now more emphases are coming of creating automations, creating RPAs, bots, robots. Things should automatically happen at a click of a button, or you need not even click a button. The system should do it with great intelligence. It is possible. I don't deny it's not there. But you need to understand there has to be a life cycle. I hope people who have done CISA, DISA, they would have learned and heard about software development life cycle. Similarly, when we are talking about today advanced analytics, it has a life cycle. And the life cycle happens is we need to first step is focus on our basics. What are we trying to do? This is what I was doing in Excel. We used to come to our offices, open up the laptops, desktops, and this is what we used to run. And this is what it was. The best approach is, first of all, make your daily routine basic thing automated. Try to remove something which has manual intervention. Don't become a slave of technology. Try to make technology your slave. You should be able to dictate a computer and say, this is what I've been doing on daily basis. I have been, if I'm in a procurement department and I'm getting all the RFP documents and I read them, I make a JER, joint evaluation report, and then I start negotiating and talking. I don't want to do that. Can a system help me? Yes, system can help you. Make a bot out of it. The bot should be intelligent. You should program on 15th of April at 3 p.m. this tender will close. At 15 past 3, the bot will wake up, go to the folder, pick up all the tenders. In less than 1 minute's time, it will generate an output and it sends you a trigger. Here it is. And now you have all these things ready. You please start negotiating. Why should I read that? Similarly, if I'm doing any analytics, I'm looking into businesses, there are certain daily routine work that we all are doing. Whether we are in operations, we are in finance, we are in audit, or anywhere. Please make that as level 1 manless. Once you have done that, you have applied certain things. Don't jump too fast. Monitor it for some time. That is level 2. I have applied certain automation. I have removed my manual intervention. Let me see what happens. You will have certain teething problems. You will have some issues. Try to mature that. You should be able to be expert by that time that you reach level 3 and you know how I manage my this automation. If I've done all these things, if some problem happens, I know how to manage it. And once you're able to manage, you will be able to create into it something called error handling logic, which is a very important element. Okay, if this error happens, this should happen. Something like, I give you an example, if I'm extracting data from huge systems like Oracle, banking, or in telcos also, I built up a data extraction which will keep on extracting data every 1 hour. One of my case study was every 15 minutes for a US company called Walmart. The CFO wanted every 15 minutes my data should get refreshed. I have LED screens across my floor, and these are my 5 most critical parameters. And I should get a stock exchange of view running, and there should be a clock on the right side corner saying 10 minutes to refresh, 5 minutes to refresh, and the report should keep refreshing. While we did that part, there were certain teething problems in getting the data refresh and all that. There were multiple platforms. They had SAP, Oracle, they had Navision, they had an IT security ticketing data. So we pulled up, managed it, and once we were able to know these are the common things happen, then we built up the logic. Okay, if this data is not refreshing because the backend data is not ready, it will automatically generate a trigger, send it to CIO, send it to certain people that this table is still with a backdate. It is not been refreshed, it's not been updated. Please update, process is stopped. The guy knows, okay, this has been there. If they gave us a liberty, we said we can build a logic which will automatically go and refresh your data also for you. So that is where I say I have done my error handling. Now I know how to manage the application. Once you have reached that maturity, you come to the real RPA, what people today are talking about an RPA at level 4. Now I can say I can make robots because I know how to handle everything. You will be able to convert all the development of level 3 into 100% manless mode as your automated thing. And then what I do is, the last step, I keep monitoring. There is something called analytical life cycle. We always believe one small thing, that I have developed the module, I have done the analytics, now I have the reports coming, I should relax, this will keep on going. No. Every analytics has a life cycle. How do you know the life cycle is over? For an instance, if you have some kind of a business assurance analytics, something on even, vendors have been always a vulnerable area and a lot of frauds have been happening there, or even in the banking. I have certain reports or certain parameters set and I had an exception level. Based on my exception, the business took certain decisions, they implemented controls. And because I'm on level number 5, I'm continuously monitoring these reports. And over the period, I find now my trends are going down. I'm not having that high exception. And finally, you come to a level that is called a audit risk or a business risk area, and your exceptions are within those parameters. This is an acceptable risk for me. This exposure is done. Obviously, I cannot have a zero loss or zero revenue loss kind of an organization, but this much of losses is acceptable. Materiality is not that great for it. That means now you need to move further. That analytics is over. Now you have secured, you have controlled that area, but that does not mean that you don't ever visit to it. You can always go back after might be a quarter or a 6 months and revisit once for a while and see, is the exception still low or not? I give you a fantastic case study, 2005, 2006, almost like 1.5 decades back. I can name here my customer because the customer allowed me to do that. And this was within Mumbai with a company called Godrej Industries. Godrej in itself has almost, I think, 8 or 9 companies within the group. And we were working with a group internal audit head. He said, Nishit, you know what is my approach of doing it, or any other audit people? We always gather our people in a room and we say, okay, let's create an audit plan for the year. And everybody with their own imagination and thought process will come. So this quarter we should look inventory, this quarter we should look sales, here we should look expenses. I don't want that kind of, manual thinking subjectivity coming. He was talking in 2005. Can there be a system which will give me a trigger in which quarter I should be able to focus on what area, which area becomes vulnerable? Now for doing that, yes, we had to go back to the historical data. And I went back to almost 5 years data to see every quarter, every area, what is your exception movements, and you get a trend out of it. Based on that trend, then you build a intelligent system which will go to the current data, look for exception, map with your past history, and tell you, boss, next 6 months, these becomes your vulnerable sectors to check. And within them, these are your vulnerable accounting heads, customers, vendors, whom you should focus. Trust me, he brought down his on-site audit from 12 days to just 4 days. So imagine how he was able to. Now that was something called in that time called, predictive audit analytics, where you could predict or you could use the technology to tell you what should be your next areas of audit. And that's where it happens. I give you another life thing where we talk about monitoring. In banking, a lot of people have a concept called KYC. KYC is something like know your customer. What does know your customer mean? I give a long form, please write your name, please tell me how many are your legally known wife, how many are your legally known children, what is your income, where do you work? That's it. No, that doesn't bother me. If you ask me as a business analyst or even from any point of view, I said, fine, he has given it. First of all, I have no place to go and verify that. I'm not going to his house and say, okay, you said Mrs. So-and-so is your wife. Can you show me who is she? And she will come and say, yeah, I'm Mrs. So-and-so. I'm deliberately not taking any name because by chance the name clash with somebody, I will get into some IPR problem. So I said, sorry, I can't do that. Neither I'm going to do when I have such a huge population. What is know your customer means? The know your customer means each one of us today here on the call, or each one of us who's having a bank, we have a style, we have a trend of doing banking. We have a lifestyle of doing banking. If somebody is working on late nights or BPOs, obviously that person would be doing most of the banking during the late hours and he would be sleeping in the day. If you go back and look into not more than 6 months of your banking statement, take an electronic form, download in an Excel, you will be surprised to see your own trend. What is an average amount per month you use on the credit cards, on debit cards, how much you pay back? After you get your credit card bill, are you paying regularly within 1 week, 4 days, 10 days? There would be a trend. Date, time, which day of the week you do maximum banking, which day of the week you don't even do any banking. On so many parameters, you make real know your customer thing. That's the way to use technology. And that's where the use of big data comes. I know about all these things. Today, my GPS position is easily shareable. It would be wrong to say that, no, my banker does not know my GPS. You open your laptop, open up Chrome. Chrome will tell you. I open up Chrome here, it says you are in Bahrain. It will by default show all my things into BH or USD. It does not show me INR. So my everything is being captured and known. If I know your banking style, I know your banking thing. Once for a while, I just take your 2 years data, 1 year data, create that numbers, plant it onto your real-time system, and let the system do the job. You can put a buffer of 25-30% variation. And then what will happen? The system will keep telling you that the moment your customer will violate the lifestyle, it would generate an alert and you can send an alert to anywhere you want to. You can have it on mobile, you could have WhatsApp, you could have your emails, anything you want today. And then you get into an action mode. And some of the banks, without naming them, they started implementing. And the moment you may not even come to know that you are monitored, the moment you violate your KYC, at times you are standing at a ATM, you're trying to withdraw some money, you might find a slow delay in your release of the money, which could be possibly, I'm not talking about Bahrain, but where I've done, it would be possible that you are violating your time zone. You have never done an ATM at that hour of the night or the day, or the amount that you are trying to withdraw was not in line with your normal trends, and might be possible the location from where you are drawing your ATM is not your normal ATM usage location. If any of these 3 parameters in that particular logic violates, It gives out the trigger and say, please see. And what happens is the call center immediately makes a call to that card holder. Sir, are you trying to withdraw X amount? May I know your location? Verifies everything done. Then they press the button release and the ATM works. Similarly, it could be with telcos. That's the way you can use your big data coming from so many sources together, which is now shareable. And you can make your business assurance. You can be sure about your things. Yes, everything is in order. And before you really lose anything, you could be done. Another ATM could be even your ATM machines. You have a cache over there. You could have a predictive thing. In next 4 hours, these are the ATMs, could be in Manama, could be Steve, could be Arad. This dimension of your currency is going to get finished off. And in next 4 hours, this is the demand going to be there. Please plan to replenish. You could create an intelligent bot which will just send the signals to everybody. Please make sure you fill this 10 BD, 5 BD, 1 BD currency in these kind of ATMs. They are going to be finished off. I could make those kind of intelligence. That's where I say you start doing now monitoring part. The most important is how do we utilize our brain and think for making those monitoring parts. So this is, ladies and gentlemen, a very maturity model in which you could build your analytics. And as I always say, you should try to link your IT security also with it. The moment you bring security element to your business assurance, you really create an assurance. People are being misusing it because your security is separate and your business is separate. So that way it helps you out to do the thing. While we are doing it, I will just take, I hope Sushant, I have just less than 5 minutes with me. This is something I just want to tell, how do we really make step-by-step best practices. Shashank, do I have 5 minutes?
Yes, sir, you do have. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. While we are doing this, as I just explained about the maturity things, what are the best practices of implementing while you're on the floor? As I said earlier, yes, you should surely look into your scoping very thoroughly. Try to get to the right critical data. The most important word is critical data. Don't pick up all the data. Every data that you need may not be your requirement. Once you have done that part, the very important thing that could happen is extract and obtain the data thing. How well are you able to extract? This is the element where extracting and importing, you should be focusing more on seeing the consistency and its correctness. If you ask me, when I built out any kind of process, I put a lot of logics into these two sectors to make sure every time it just keeps on extracting and importing, it is the correct data coming. Data corruption is one of the another very common problem in your analytics. You might really get off it to it. Whatever technology you use the most, there are certain technical parts of it. You know, if by chance in future your data increase or decrease even by a single character, you were extracting a data which had almost something like 180 characters in a single row, but sometime it went to 178, 79 or 181, 182, your data corrupts. Small technical things happen. This is the area where you really need some good technical support so that you have been done there. And yes, you would be knowing the business rules. You have the business people, do that part, and then you manage your false positives. And in visualization, the last step happens. What I just like to take in the next 1 minute is visualization. What is like visualization? A lot of people come out and say like, yeah, I have Tableau, I've got Power BI. I would like to have a beautiful visualization. Surely you should have a beautiful visualization. Everybody wants that to be beautiful, colorful, with all the things. What is visualization? Visualization is talking to the data. That graphical presentation that you see, besides being beautiful, should have a brain also. It is transforming your Excel numbers, records into a more easily understandable graphical output. So it is basically talking to the data at the back and showing you something which your eyes and your brain can correlate and interpret it very easily in a meaningful form. That is called effective visualization. Trust me, as you can see, any industry designs and things, it's very easy, success stories to be shown, demos to be done. It is equally difficult. Why? Beside your business and technical knowledge, it needs creativity. If I'm making any kind of a visualization, I need to add to my brain, what am I trying to show? Is it going to give me a meaningful input? What am I trying to look? Let me show you one example of it. So I hope my internet does not spoil my thing. It just stuck to my mind now, so I just open it up, although it's been made in Power BI. So while designing all those kind of things, you have to think what is the most critical part of your business, how is that to be seen, and if I'm basically trying to do some further analytics to it, or I want to make some changes, I want to have some elements where I can pull up and I can drill down, what should be those kind of things. So this is something where I just happen to create it out. I made out like a multi-industry kind of a thing where you could have multiple industries, and you could use something like, I take my favorite topic like procure to pay. So in a procure to pay, I have multiple things here with me. So I have vendor masters and all those things. If I get into my vendor master, it will then, what I do is I make a visualization which shows me a summary. Now it's individual perspective. How do you see? I always see that visualization should at a glance, if I am a CFO or if I am a senior person, it should at a glance give me some macro numbers on the top. And from these macro numbers, I should be able to understand what exactly are my exception numbers or my business numbers. If I say, okay, I have got one-time vendor 2017, 18, 19, 18 went pretty high over there. I have open invoices. There are 25 invoices. This is an amount where my open invoices is $67 million are there. I have paid 427. I love to look into it. So basically what is there is, as a user, I bifurcate one-time vendor into two parts. There could be one-time vendor whom I've already paid, and there could be one-time vendor who are yet to be paid. What does a one-time vendor mean? One-time vendor by the name means I just do transaction once. Am I doing it repeatedly? What is the volume I'm running? Which vendor am I trying to do? So based on why am I looking into it, we built a lot of variables on the top of it. I can look into year, or I want to look for certain vendor names here. Or if I have a purchase order numbers, I can look into my document numbers. This is for open, similarly for the paid. So I can always look, this is the money already gone, this is the money yet to go. Is that something I can stop? I can say, oh, this seems to be a difficult one. Please don't release this one-time vendor payment. This is not correct. The moment some systems try to give you a premature or a early alert, that becomes your predictive. It is predicting to you, it is giving you a trigger. Yes, please don't do this. It is exception. And if I'm able to stop, yes, I'm able to achieve my objective. So while you are getting into these kind of visualization, you need to be highly also creative about it. And you don't learn to this level at a first shot. It is always again a journey. And I always believe keep doing as much as you can. And as my concluding remark, I would always say for technology and to my professional colleagues, don't ever hesitate to do any experiment on technology. Please go open, go bold, go wild in doing it. Unless and until you hammer your machine or your mobile, nothing gets lost, nothing gets destroyed. You can always come back. Thank you very much. Thank you bearing with me, and thank you, Honorable Chairman. Thank you, Shashank, for inviting me here. Wish you a very happy and a pleasant weekend ahead. Ramadan Kareem to everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your wonderful session. It was very insightful. Thank you very much, sir.